What's up YouTube? I have read your comments on the past couple of videos, and I have noticed there's an increasing amount of advanced and intermediate players that are starting to watch my videos, and they are asking what about me. I'm going to be showing you guys a couple of tips on some more intermediate and advanced stuff that I also use, so let's just get straight onto the video. My last video, I was more so catering to the beginner player. I have quite noticed a advanced and intermediate player base that have been watching my videos. In my last how to peek safely video, you guys have noticed that I didn't tell my beginners to place floors. This might seem misleading at first because obviously you want to have this center piece control. However, as a beginner player, let's just say opponent decides to take your wall, right? And you have this cone right here. Your opponent decides to take a wall and decides to take an end trying to get a peek shot, right? If you're a beginner player, you don't necessarily have the muscle memory to edit this wall, edit this cone as well, and expand, right? If you're a beginner player, you don't really have this muscle memory built up like a intermediate or advanced player, right? Just mainly because your sensitivity is probably lower, or it's just a little bit too fast. You're still figuring out your sensitivity, or you just don't have the muscle memory or crosshair control to be able to edit right here, then also edit in between the lines right here, edit in between the lines right here, edit in between the lines right here, and then continue tunneling. Anyways, the reasoning why I told my beginners to not place floors in their or cones in their boxes is because first tip is you gotta know when to place cones and you gotta know when to place ramps. Okay, there are two different scenarios in when you place cones and when you place ramps, right? Because let's say you have an aggressive console player or an aggressive controller player, they're not going to try and pickaxe and just take your wall and try to box fight you. No, they're going to edit the ramp like this, jump in. And yes, you can place a cone right here like this as they jump in, but they're just going to spray into your box. A cone, when it's edited, can be just broken in one shot or two shots, right? And your opponent's already going to be spraying in. Whereas if you were to just build a ramp, it takes a little bit more time for them to actually break it, right? Because a ramp is fully built, whereas a cone it only takes 2 shots. It takes like 4 or 3 shots for you to break a ramp. And what this allows you to do, let's say your opponent does hop in, you can place a ramp, head it out to the side, and come here for this peak. And if your opponent does happen to break the ramp in the time that you broke it, now you have him fully boxed and you can just go for a shotgun shot. Obviously, don't go for this right hand peek if you are going up against this player. Instead, go for a Nor Valley peek, window peek instead. One of these two peaks. Now, let's say if I were an aggressive keyboard and mouse player, right? Yeah, I would want to jump in if I had aim assist. So, I'm going to have to box fight him like normal, get his HP down first in order, or my opponent's HP down first, in order to jump in. This is when I urge my students to start placing cones, because everyone knows that if you have the cone and if you have the wall, you practically have full control of the fight. This is when editing your cone like this or like this, and then editing out right here, expanding, etc. That's when this becomes more crucial, right? Also, the reason why I preach cones is because if you're against the player that is PC and he's on PC, right, or he's very aggressive, is you can't really hold your walls against him, right? You can only pre-fire or take his walls because he's just going to hold those walls. So catching him off guard is going to be more of your cup of tea, right? So let's just say you expand, right, and then he's trying to jump in and he's trying to get piece control, right, because he's overconfident. What you can do, obviously expand right here, come over here, chop. This puts your opponent on the left side, and everyone knows that putting your opponent on the left side will allow you to have more advantage over the fight. Also, if your opponent decides to jump in, because if he is a PC player, right, he's just going to want to obviously take this cone and then take this wall and trying to get into right here, right, trying to get into where you tunneled into. If he does do that, you can obviously just tunnel over here, chop. But knowing when to place cones and knowing when to place ramps applies even if you're playing aggressive, right? So let's say I'm box fighting this opponent right here. I'm just diagonal box fighting him either with a ramp looks like this, cone, doesn't matter, right? I do want to gain control of this centerpiece, right? I do. But let's just say he doesn't have it, right? Knowing when to place a cone and knowing when to place a ramp is also going to be dependent on if your opponent is facing you or if your opponent is not facing you. If your opponent's not facing you, you can go ahead and place a cone and get away with it, right? Whereas, let's say your opponent is looking at you. If your opponent is looking at you, you can just place a ramp and it'll either mess up his shot if he's up here, especially if you get behind cover right after you place the ramp, or he'll be underneath the ramp. You can do this peek, and now you have advantage, right? You have this little nice like right hand peek, which is really like, it's called the impossible peek, I guess you can say, where your opponent is like really in shambles. Like, you can't see your opponent from right here. Your opponent can't see you from right here as well, right? Because he's kind of stuck. Now, some drills on practicing some expanding cones would be like doing like a simple 180 with the cone on top, editing the cone on top, high wall, come over here, put cones right here, put cones right here, walls, cones, and then maybe if you can try to make a right hand peek, cone, no Riley peek because you probably do all the editing, cone, maybe place a ramp right here, right? Something like that. Another way, if that's just a little too advanced for you, a simple like box fighting drill, piece control drill, be like this, right? Just practice boxing your opponent and then just pretend he got out, and then going for something like that. Same thing on the other side. Go for peanut butter peek, box, right here, box, like that. Or you can go for window peek, like I always do. Like that. Extending cones goes as far as this too. Like, here, extending your cones out to this ramp will also help. But if you can learn how to edit this cone, get onto that right there. So let me see. Edit this cone. Catch yourself with two walls. Place a cone up here. You'll catch your opponent so off guard, right? If you can learn this, right? Maybe go for a right hand peek. Maybe have him jump in, or right, montage peek, etc. Right? Should be it for today's video. I can't really think of any other tips for just a little bit more advanced box fighting tips. I don't necessarily have the time to come up with more peeks or more tips. If you, since I work full time, I'm pretty stacked on time. So if you guys want me to get out of this slum, obviously subscribe. I don't really care if you do. Just make sure that this video gets out to other players that need it or might need it. That's all I really care about, is making sure that players that need these tips or might not have these tips available to them, that they are also able to receive these tips because they're for free, right? That's my thing, is I don't want to profit off of you guys. I want to make sure that the community grows and grows as a whole. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.